Hi, so today I want to talk about something that I've realized while learning Japanese, which allowed me to avoid plateaus and progress further until I reached a good level at the language. Being more specific, I will talk about adding randomness to your language learning journey. And when I say randomness, of course, I mean incorporating native material that is not really intended for learning, but intended for natives, and also about the importance of going beyond your own level when trying to learn Japanese. So this video will be divided in a few sections, 3 to be more specific. In the first one, I want to clarify what I mean by learning randomly and also how powerful learning randomly can be. So in the second part, I will suggest ways to incorporate this random learning when learning Japanese, and in the final part of the video I will talk about reviewing what you learned through random learning. Now, being straight to the point, I think the best way to learn Japanese is to mix a structured approach of learning, which means using material intended for learning, such as textbooks or taking Japanese classes, kind of things, with random native material. And I think that approach is very effective for learning Japanese and language in general, because of the way that languages are acquired by us. Because you see, language is a very natural thing for us humans, and if you think about it, the way we acquire language is very different when compared to other skills. Take babies, for example. They are exposed to a lot of random native stuff from the very day they are born, or even before they are born. And it doesn't matter, that's how they learn. They learn their language completely randomly. And of course, I know someone that is trying to learn Japanese as a second language cannot be compared to a baby learning, like to a Japanese baby learning their native language. But let's compare it with other skills. For example, imagine that someone wants to get fit, and so they start going to the gym. And as you can imagine, if it's their first time at the gym and they do bench press for the first time, you cannot expect them to suddenly be able to bench press 100 kilograms, right? Usually you will start with just the bar, and then you add the weights little by little until you are able to lift 100 kilograms. But language does not really work that way, because you see, imagine that in your first day learning Japanese, you expose yourself to the equivalent of 100 kilograms of native Japanese. Nothing will happen to you if you do that. I mean, maybe, yeah, you will not understand anything that you're exposing yourself to, probably, but there is a chance that you learned something. Even if it's something very small, you learn a new word or you learn a new structure that you didn't know. I mean, regardless of level, there's always something you can learn from there. And you see, that is the beauty of language learning. There's not really any plateau, because as long as you keep learning, you will keep progressing. And you see, this progress is very tangible. If I teach you a word in Japanese right now, that's new knowledge that you acquire right away, and you can feel that you have acquired it. And when we compare with the guy going to the gym for the first time example again, if that guy tries to lift 100 kilograms, tries to bench press 100 kilograms on their first day, chances are they're gonna get hurt. And if they don't get hurt, they will probably not even be able to move the bar. But for languages like Japanese, even as a beginner, you're able to learn something from every material. We'll also be reviewing the things you've learned in the textbooks, right? And if you keep doing that, you keep consistent, then little by little you get a natural feel for how Japanese works. You will start to notice the same words and patterns coming up again and again. But no, let's be honest with you, sometimes it will be very hard, sometimes you will be very tired. And when this happens, when you cannot take it anymore, then just take a step back and get the textbook. Study something easy for you, something that is at your own level. And then when you're ready again, you're confident again, then you try to use this approach again of exposing yourself to a lot of native material. Now, I will talk about how to implement this randomness, this random pattern of learning, even as a beginner. There are two types of random learning, which is learning passively or learning actively. And as the name suggests, if you learn something passively, it means you're not really paying attention to it. So for example, if you turn on music in the background, you listen to a podcast in the background, that's just passive listening, passive learning. And this kind of learning is more useful for beginners when they're not really used to the sounds of the language. So by doing this kind of exercise, you can learn how the language sounds better. But as you can imagine, you can do that for 10,000 hours, but if you're not paying attention, if you're not trying to learn actively, you're not really going to learn the language. Even though passive learning is useful for beginners, you should always focus on active learning as much as possible. So when it comes to reading is always active learning. Listening depends. Speaking and writing are always active learning. As for videos like dramas or movies, anime, there are two or three possible approaches, right? You can watch it with English subtitles or whatever your native language is, or you can watch with Japanese subtitles, or you can watch with no subtitles at all. And for beginners especially, I think it's totally okay to watch with English subtitles or your native language subtitles, because you see, subtitles will be a way of reviewing what you've learned. Because you see, by having the English subtitles there, and I speak from my experience, I've watched a lot of dramas with English subtitles, I felt that I could understand their Japanese more because of the subtitles. Second best thing when you're learning is to watch without any subtitles rather than with Japanese subtitles. I think the order should be watch with subtitles of a language you know, then watch with no subtitles, and then watch with Japanese subtitles. And if you are advanced and you can read Japanese without any problems, then sure, turn on those subtitles. But otherwise, they'll just be in the way, you trying to focus on two things at the same time, reading the subtitles and listening to what they say, and sometimes they don't even match. If you study with no subtitles, then you can watch the same episode of whatever you're watching again with subtitles this time, to try to compare, to try to learn. Another great way to learn randomly is by learning through games. I can speak from my own experience learning English actually. I took English classes since I was a kid. I really liked playing games at the time as well, but in Brazil the games were not really localized to Portuguese, so if I wanted to play the games I had to play them in English. And unconsciously I was reviewing what I had learned in my English classes, and also learning new vocabulary from the context of those games. And I can say it was probably my best source for learning English at the time, even though I was not really thinking about learning English, I was just enjoying the games. Thus, if you want to use games to learn Japanese, I suggest that you start with games that you have played before in English, so that you already know the story, and you're not going to get stuck if you suddenly cannot understand something. And then there's also books and manga. So I want to talk about that more specifically in my next video. The books also have so many benefits, and I can just say that, of course, as a beginner you probably cannot read any book But you can use the books for reviewing what you have learned, rather than focusing on the contents of the book. Now, for the last part of the video, you're learning Japanese through the system of using a structured approach like textbooks mixed with random native material that interests you, but obviously you have to review that or else you're going to forget everything. And I've talked about that in my other videos, and probably lots of people talk about that you can review things using a spaced repetition system like Anki, but there are should do's and should not do's in reviewing what you've learned on Anki. The 3 key points. Point number 1 is that you should understand the sentence that you input there completely. As a beginner, that means your sentence will be very simple. And by the way, add sentence is not only vocabulary, you need to learn the vocabulary in context, right? And every sentence should have only one structure or one vocabulary that you didn't know and you're learning now. So anything else in the sentence is something that you are reviewing. Then point number 2 is that your sentences should be 100% correct, because you don't want to learn wrong sentences and then keep reviewing something wrong and then make your brain believe that that wrong sentence is actually correct. So how do you input wrong sentences? It's simple. If you try to make up your own sentences, chances are they will be wrong. So yeah, sometimes people want to add sentences, like they want to change something so that it will make it easier for them to remember the sentence, because they add something more relatable to them. But I think you should just add the sentences exactly as you found them, so that you don't risk getting something wrong. But point number 3 is the most important one: to not overdo spaced repetition and to keep things simple. For example, if you watch an episode of a drama and you're still a beginner, there will be hundreds of new words there, and imagine the hell it would be to just add all of those words in there. Just add 2-3 words because they may sound important to you, or you just want to learn that word. You thought it was cool or something. That is okay, you know. Because if it's an important word, it will come up again and again. It's much more important for you to enjoy a lot of things, different things, than just, oh, I have to learn everything from this material. I speak from my own experience because I tended to do that and I regret it. That's it for this video. The takeaway message is that when learning Japanese, learn at your own level, but always try to go further. And also that everything counts when learning a language, and as long as you keep progressing, as long as you keep learning new vocabulary or new structures, you are progressing. If you do that, you'll never reach any plateau. Because if you are stuck, there's something you don't understand, then you just study something else. You just have fun with something else, right? So if you agree or you disagree, I would be very happy if you could leave a comment. In my next video, I'll be talking about how to learn through Japanese literature that is not manga. There's really so much that you can learn from books. That's what I want to talk about 1 week from now, okay? I hope to see you then. Bye bye.